Someone asks you today, "Hey, are you okay?" And without even thinking, without even a single second of hesitation, the words come out perfectly smooth. "Yeah, I'm fine, just tired." You smile, they believe you, the conversation moves on, and you go back to carrying everything you were carrying before they asked, alone, in silence, like you always do. Here's what most people don't realize. That answer, "I'm fine," didn't come from nowhere. It was built, carefully, over many years, by a mind that learned at some point that showing pain was more dangerous than hiding it. There is a whole group of people walking through this world right now who are struggling at a level most people around them cannot even imagine, but you would never know. Because on the outside, they are calm, they are helpful, they are strong, they laugh at the right moments, they show up for everyone else, they hold everything together. And inside, they are quietly exhausted in a way that no one sees and no amount of sleep can fix. Today, we're going to break down the psychology of people who hide how much they're struggling, why they do it, where it starts, and especially the last sign, the one that reveals the most dangerous cost of hiding that almost no one ever talks about. Welcome back. I'm Brightened. Let's get started. Before we get into the signs, we need to give this thing a name, because one of the most painful parts of this experience is not having the words for it. Psychologists call it high-functioning distress. It describes people who are carrying enormous emotional weight, grief, anxiety, depression, chronic stress, a deep sense of not being okay, but whose outward behavior shows almost none of it. They still go to work. They still meet their deadlines. They still take care of the people around them. They still post normal things on social media. From the outside, their life looks fine, maybe even good. But that word, high functioning, is one of the cruelest combinations in psychology, because functioning is not the same as living, and performing okay is not the same as being okay. The world looks at them and sees someone who is managing. What the world doesn't see is how much energy it costs just to keep that performance running every single day. So, where does it start? Why do some people become so skilled at hiding their pain while others reach out freely and fall apart openly? The answer almost always begins in childhood. Imagine a child who grows up in a home where emotions are treated as inconveniences. Maybe their sadness was met with irritation. Maybe their tears were called dramatic. Maybe they learned quickly that when they cried, the energy in the room got heavier and the people they loved seemed burdened or annoyed. Or maybe their home wasn't dramatic at all. Maybe it was simply a place where no one really talked about feelings, where the unspoken rule was this: handle it yourself, don't make a fuss, be strong. That child's developing brain draws a very logical conclusion from these experiences. Vulnerability is unsafe. Needing things is a problem. The way to stay loved, to stay accepted, to stay out of trouble is to appear okay even when you are not. Psychologist John Bowlby's attachment theory shows us that children are hardwired to adapt to their caregiving environment to survive. If being emotional created distance or conflict, the child learns to mask those emotions, and they get very good at it. So good that by adulthood, the mask and the face beneath it have almost completely merged. They forget where one ends and the other begins. This is not weakness, this was survival. The hiding was the child's most intelligent available solution. The tragedy is that they are still using it long after the danger has passed. So let's look at exactly how this shows up. Here are the 7 signs. Sign 1. They are experts at performing okay. Picture this. They are sitting across from a close friend at dinner. They have been crying alone in their car for 20 minutes before walking in. They have not slept properly in 2 weeks. There is a weight sitting right in the center of their chest that has been there for months. But they sit down, and within seconds, they are asking about their friend's job, their friend's relationship, their friend's problems. The conversation flows. They laugh at the right moments. They give thoughtful advice. They are present, warm, and completely convincing. No one at that table would ever guess. In psychology, this is called emotional masking, and it is far more sophisticated than simple lying. It is a whole internal system. They have learned to compartmentalize with extraordinary precision, sealing off the part that is hurting so completely that it barely leaks into the surface. Researchers studying emotional suppression have found that people who practice it chronically become genuinely skilled at it over time. The performance becomes almost effortless. But effortless on the outside does not mean costless. Every act of suppression uses cognitive resources. It is like running a hidden program in the background of a computer, invisible, but constantly draining the battery. Sign 2. They joke about the things that hurt them most. Pay close attention to what these people laugh about, because humor, for them, is not just entertainment. It is a delivery system for truth that feels too heavy to say directly. They will make a self-deprecating joke about their exhaustion, their loneliness, or their inability to ask for help, and everyone around them laughs, including them. And the moment passes. But if you sit with that joke for a second longer, you realize it was not entirely a joke. Psychologists call this humor as deflection. It serves a very specific purpose. It allows them to release a small amount of real feeling into the air without the terrifying exposure of saying it plainly. The laughter creates a buffer. It lets the truth out in a form that is safe, because if anyone gets too close to it, it can always be dismissed as just a joke. The saddest part is that sometimes they are telling you exactly what is wrong, and the world keeps laughing. Sign 3. They help everyone else but never ask for help. They are always the one who shows up, the one you call at midnight when things fall apart, the one who drives across the city to help you move, who sits with you for hours while you cry, who always knows what to say. They give generously and without keeping score, but when they are the one falling apart at midnight, they lie in the dark alone and don't call anyone. This pattern has a name in trauma psychology. It is connected to a survival response called fawning, where the nervous system learns that taking care of others is the safest way to maintain connection and avoid rejection. If I am useful, I will not be abandoned. If I keep giving, I will be allowed to stay. But there is a deeper layer beneath the fawning. Asking for help requires something they have a very complicated relationship with: vulnerability. And vulnerability, for them, has always felt like the most dangerous thing in the world, because in the past, every time they showed their real need, something went wrong. So they stopped showing it. They became the helper so they would never have to become the one who needs help. Sign 4. They disappear instead of breaking down in front of people. When the weight gets too heavy, they do not explode. They do not cry in front of you. They do not call someone in crisis. They go quiet. They cancel plans. They become suddenly busy or suddenly unreachable. They retreat into themselves and handle the collapse privately, in the silence of their own room where no one has to see it. To the people around them, this often looks like distance or moodiness, but what is actually happening is far more complex. Their nervous system, following the polyvagal theory described by Dr. Stephen Porges, has activated a dorsal vagal shutdown response. When emotional pain becomes overwhelming and the pattern of hiding is deeply wired, the system does not reach out for co-regulation. It withdraws, it goes offline, it survives alone. They have simply never learned to let another person share the weight, because for most of their life, no one taught them that was allowed. Sign 5. They minimize their own pain automatically. Ask them how they are doing. Really ask, with full sincerity and eye contact, and watch what happens. Even if things are genuinely difficult, their first instinct is not to tell you the truth. Their first instinct is to shrink it, to qualify it, to make it smaller and less important than it actually is. It's not a big deal. I've dealt with worse. I'm okay. Other people have it so much harder. This is not humility. It is a deeply ingrained cognitive habit that psychologists connect to something called emotional invalidation in early development. When a child's emotional responses are repeatedly minimized by the adults around them, "Stop crying, it's nothing. You're overreacting." The child internalizes that voice. It becomes their own. So now, as an adult, they do the minimizing themselves. They become their own emotional invalidator. They deny themselves the right to struggle even before anyone else gets the chance to. Sign 6. They feel a strange guilt about struggling at all. This one is subtle, but it is one of the most painful parts of this whole experience. Somewhere deep inside them is a belief that their pain is not justified, that they do not have the right to be struggling because their problems are not serious enough, because other people have it worse, because from the outside, Their life looks fine. So what do they have to complain about? This guilt becomes its own prison. It traps them in a loop where they cannot reach out because they feel their pain is too small to deserve help, yet the pain keeps growing because it is never addressed. Clinical psychologists recognize this as a symptom of chronic emotional suppression, combined with what is sometimes called the comparing pain trap. The brain convinces them that suffering has a minimum threshold to qualify as real, that their pain must pass some invisible test before it earns the right to be felt. It doesn't. Pain is not a competition, but they have been running in one alone for years. Sign 7. They are exhausted in a way that sleep cannot fix. This is the one that lives underneath all the others. They can sleep 8 hours and wake up tired. They can have a quiet weekend with nothing demanding on the schedule and still feel completely drained by Sunday evening. They can take a vacation, step away from every responsibility, and still carry that deep, bone-level heaviness with them wherever they go. Because this exhaustion is not physical. It is the exhaustion of years of emotional labor. The constant effort of managing, hiding, performing, suppressing, and holding everything together while appearing like none of it is happening. Neuroscience research on chronic emotional suppression shows that it keeps the body's stress response system, the HPA axis, in a state of low-level, continuous activation. Cortisol stays elevated. The nervous system never fully downregulates. The body is always quietly bracing. Over time, this is not just tiring, it is genuinely damaging. Chronic suppression has been linked to weakened immune function, disrupted sleep architecture, and an increased risk of anxiety and depression. The irony is devastating. They have been hiding their pain to protect themselves, but the hiding itself has become the thing that is hurting them the most. And that brings us to the cost, the thing that almost no one talks about. When hiding becomes a lifelong habit, something very specific begins to happen to identity. They start to lose access to their own inner world. Psychologists call this alexithymia, a reduced ability to identify and describe your own emotions. When you have spent years not expressing what you feel, the pathway between feeling and language slowly narrows. They begin to genuinely struggle to answer the question, "How are you feeling?" Not because they are hiding anymore, but because they have lost the map to find the answer. Think about what that means. They started hiding to protect themselves from being misunderstood by others, and they ended up becoming a mystery to themselves. The greatest cost of hiding is not that others never see you. It is that, eventually, you stop seeing yourself. So, what is the way forward? They cannot simply decide to stop hiding. Hiding is not a choice they are making consciously every day. It is a pattern written into the nervous system over a long time. But there are 3 things that can slowly begin to change it. The first is to start small and private. Before being seen by others, practice being honest with yourself, not in a dramatic way, just once a day, in a journal or in the quiet of the morning. Ask yourself, not, "How are you?" but, "What am I actually carrying today?" No minimizing, no comparing, just an honest inventory. This begins to rebuild the internal pathway that hiding slowly closed. The second is to choose one safe person. Not a crowd, not a public confession, just one person who has shown over time that they can hold information carefully, and practice telling them one true thing, not everything, just one thing, something real. Watch what happens. Most of the time, the catastrophe they feared does not arrive, and that experience becomes new data for a nervous system that has only ever known the data of hiding. The third is the hardest. It is learning to tolerate the discomfort of being seen without immediately retreating. When someone asks if they are okay and they feel the familiar words, "I'm fine," rising automatically, they can pause for just one extra second. They do not have to say everything. They can simply say, "Not really, but I don't know how to talk about it yet." That pause, that small, imperfect honesty, that is how a wall this old begins to develop a door. Here is what I want you to remember. The hiding was never a flaw. It was love. It was a younger version of you loving themselves the only way they knew how to survive. By becoming invisible in the places that felt dangerous. By carrying everything quietly so the people around them could stay comfortable. By choosing the weight of silence over the risk of being too much. That deserves not judgment, but deep compassion. But here is the truth that older version of you could not have known yet. You survived, which means the rules of that old environment no longer have to apply. You are not that child reading the room anymore, bracing for what comes next. You are someone who has already made it through the hardest parts, and you are allowed, finally, to put some of that weight down. You do not have to be fine. Not right now. Not for anyone. Remember that scene at the very beginning? Someone asks if you are okay, and you say, I'm fine. What if, just once, you didn't? That single moment of honesty could be the beginning of something your nervous system has never experienced before. The feeling of being carried, even just a little, by someone else. You have been strong for a very long time. You are allowed to be human now. If this video felt like it was reading something you have never said out loud, leave a comment below. You don't have to explain yourself. You can just write, I felt this. That is enough, and I will know. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so we can keep exploring these hidden corners of the human experience together. Share this with someone who always says they're fine. Your one small act of sharing might be the first time they have ever felt truly seen. I'm Brightened. Take care of yourself, not just of everyone else, and I'll see you in the next video.